Welcome to day 58 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of March 1999, which was The Matrix.
Surprise, we like it.
Yeah. Okay, that's the end of this review. Bye now.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else to talk about. I guess, small funny anecdote. Tara and I saw this movie when we were in 8th grade, actually.
Yes, and apparently a lot of the scenes kind of were very traumatizing, and I blocked out most of the movie, so it was almost like watching it for the first time again. Of which I remembered why I blocked out some certain scenes.
Yeah, there are some scenes that are a bit squeaky, so just be advised.
Spooky?
That's kind of like it makes you feel squeamish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I saw it. I actually saw all 3 Matrix movies. I don't think the same day, but like very close to each other. I think like early college, so like 3-4 years ago. So, yeah, it's just kind of interesting. And I've only saw them that one time, so I don't know them that well either. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I will say this. There have been some movies where we're like, oh, it looks good, for the time, but if it was released now, it'd just be okay. We're like, this still looks really good, like now.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
The only other movie that I'd say still looks really good now, probably would be Lion King and Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Lion
No,
King
Apollo
again,
11 too.
13.
Oh yeah.
11's the one that worked. 13's not.
Minor mistake. Yes, Apollo
Yeah, but again,
13.
like for those movies, okay, Lion King is animated, so that's different. But
Yeah.
For Forrest Gump and Apollo 13, there wasn't like too much in terms of like effects, right? Like Apollo 13, yes, but it was more again like on the practical side.
Yeah.
That's
Where
true,
this
yeah.
is like a lot of this is CG, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
or at least like video manipulation with the slow-mo and stuff like that. So in terms of that, because we've seen some interesting CG effects,
Oh god.
and that's not an issue here. It still looks pretty damn impressive.
I think the only scene where it was kind of funny to look at was the last one where Agent Smith kind of exploded.
Oh yeah, that was a little bit
yeah.
weird. But
Actually,
you could also argue that, like, again, like the aspect of that, like, could be because
Yeah.
it is, like, in a computer program. So
Yeah,
it's, like,
that's true.
So you could get at least kind of understandable. But yeah, I mean, it's not distracting really or anything.
Yeah.
On
I mean, that was
topic-
the only scene, and for that to be the only scene is kind of outstanding.
Yeah.
On the topic of slow-mo, this movie reminded me that slow-mo can be cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's like overused to death and it's like not very memorable, but the slow-mo was used very well in like this movie where all the details count.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it reminded me that slow-mo used to be good ones.
And again, it's not just the slow-mo either, because they do some interesting things with it. Like, for example,
Yeah.
I always like the helicopter crashing into the building. And
Oh,
how you see
yeah.
the building like
That
kind of
was really
ripple
cool.
outward. You know what I mean? It's like that's
Yeah.
a slowed down effect, but they still like overemphasize certain things to like because like would the building actually do that? Yeah, kind of. It would, but it would nowhere near be that obvious, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that emphasis is kind of the point, right? The point of slow-mo is to say like, hey, look at these little details you might not have noticed otherwise. It's really cool. So to kind of overemphasize those is kind of the point. So,
Yeah.
and I will say, because a lot of movies also now is that they're like, even though they use slow-mo, they use it too fast. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like
yeah.
they
So you
cut
don't
to
really-
they cut to a slow
Yeah.
motion thing, but for like half a second, and then it goes back to regular speed again, and you're like, wait, whoa, I didn't have time to actually like see what I was supposed to look at, right? So
Yeah.
that's
But
that's
this
just
one actually like took its time with
yeah,
it.
because I feel it's a general problem with a lot of action movies now is that it's like that and just editing in general is just way too fast.
Yeah.
And so for her, you could
can-
definitely see everything that was going on. And so that was
You can
very
actually
nice.
enjoy the choreography of like the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that one scene where they were like storming the building and everything, we made a comment. We were like, how many times do you think it took to shoot the slow-mo scene? Because they wouldn't have been able to like slow-mo it and see it like on the spot when they were filming it. They would have had to take the film, put it through production, get it to slow-mo, and if it didn't look right, they would have to like reshoot the entire scene all over again.
I would
And,
be
like,
really
rebuild
curious to see.
The lobby.
Yeah, I would be really curious to see if there was like some sort of like documentary on like how they made the movie. Because I'd actually be kind of curious to see how all that kind of stuff works, and again, like what they did. I'm sure doing it now wouldn't be that hard, but I'd just be curious to see how it works. Because I mean, I don't know, so I'd just be kind of curious, and also because again, it's just such a new kind of thing. And yeah, the action's really good. It looks good. I guess, and like, okay, so I'm kind of split on some of the philosophical stuff. So I like the stuff with the Oracle.
Yeah.
And that. I also like the kind of idea of what is actually reality. Right?
Mhm.
It's like what we perceive as real is just our brain's interpretation of what's real. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true.
So I like that aspect of it as well. And it's kind of a physics thing in a way, if you really want to think about it. Because there was something that I read somewhere that was written kind of as a joke, but is true, and it's like, we are just atoms trying to understand ourselves.
Oh.
Right? You know what I mean? And it's like, stuff like that is like, how does that work, right? Especially when like so many fundamental like laws of physics just don't make sense to us in terms of like how you technically, for example, there's the whole like uncertainty principle where like you technically like don't know exactly where something is, and it's like,
Oh my.
how the fuck does that work? Like, how did you know what I mean? And it's just stuff like that where it's like it doesn't seem to make sense, but that's how it works. We can prove it experimentally, so therefore even if it doesn't quote unquote make sense, it's still real. But you know what I mean? So it's like that kind of aspect of it I like. That said, and I don't think this is necessarily the fault of the movie, but the whole, like, we're just a slave to the machine kind of thing is, like, is taken too far. But again, I don't think it was necessarily the movie. I think it was, like, everyone else's interpretation of the movie. Where there was so many people like, oh yeah, man, I'm just like a slave to the system and I gotta, free myself and all that kind of, and it's like,
Oh, I see.
you know what I mean? There's people who have taken that way too far. Like, the thing that comes to mind is the freaking the red pill subreddit or whatever, which is named after this, and they're all like, and their realization, their freedom is the fact that like actually like white men are the victims. You know what I mean? It's like shit like that that's like stupid, right? And again, I don't feel like it's not the fault of the movie, so I can't be like super annoyed about it, but it's like it's still there. And so when I was hearing that kind of dialogue, I'm just like, but it's like, it's not, I don't know, it's kind of stupid, but that's just kind of a little aspect of it that bugs me a little.
Retrospective cringe.
It's kind of like something that happened indirectly because of the movie.
Yeah, because again, I
It's such
think
a shame.
there's a good amount of philosophical stuff that is interesting, but I feel like it's not the stuff that's mostly focused on. And also the whole like, if the Matrix, again, like, who knows, maybe we are in a simulation, like, how would we know? And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, if there's literally no way to know, then like, that's not an interesting question.
Yeah.
The only interesting question would therefore be, would someone turn it off?
Oh.
Right,
gosh.
but the
It's
thing
like
with
that question of what if this is just a Sims game?
right, and so
Or
then
like-
then the question from that is like, well, but that's not something you can prepare for, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you can't worry. It's like the worry of, oh, what if like a black hole comes toward the Earth, and it's like, well, you can't exactly do anything about that, so there's really no point in worrying about it, So I don't
You can
know.
stage a petition.
Change.org.
And then nothing happens.
But
Hashtag stop the black hole.
yeah, but again, it's like, so the fact that so many people kind of like leached onto that aspect of it, and again, not the like what is reality and like the more philosophical aspects of it, I feel like, again, that's like, it's not the fault of the movie, it's just kind of annoys me a little bit, but whatever. It's not that in the grand scheme of things, it's not exactly important, but it's something to talk about, so I don't know.
I guess I have one random interesting question. They talk about how they did all the people and they're all connected to all the machines and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what about the animals? Because they featured a cat in the thing, but are the
in the
animals
Matrix
also
itself?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's how well, there's the main thing is that, the whole idea is the reason they're harvesting people to begin with is because they need the energy, because they originally solar powered and humanity basically blocked out the sun. And so, well, if humanity blocked out the sun, then the plants would die, which means all the animals would die. So, and also,
but I'm asking if there's any animals in the Matrix.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. So there's that aspect of it, but the other aspect is the whole point of the Matrix was as a control tool for people to go through with the harvesting, basically. And it's like, you don't really need to do that with an animal that's not conscious, right?
So the animals in the Matrix are, like, fake?
No, well, yeah, I think it's fake, because there's no reason to have them in there, basically. That's kind of the point. So, I mean, to be honest, the whole, like, Matrix thing, it doesn't honestly make a whole lot of sense to begin with. It's like, why don't you just, if the machines really need humans, why not just, like, grow humans, but then, like, make them brain dead from, like, age 0? You know what I mean? It's like, what's the point? You know what I mean? It is kind of a weak premise if you really think about it, but I don't know, whatever. Dramatic reveals. It
Suspension
works.
of disbelief.
Yeah, exactly. You don't, like, at least I don't feel like I'm not questioning the whole universe or whatever while I'm watching it. Again, if afterwards I'm like, but it doesn't really ruin the movie experience for me.
Yeah, it's not like in your face.
No.
Like, we're not questioning, like, in Payback, like, so why is he doing this for 70,000?
Yeah. I will say, so again, I have seen the other 2 Matrix movies, and neither of you have. And
No.
I don't want to talk about them yet. I mean, you could probably guess we will be talking about them in the future. But that suspension of disbelief, that it becomes a problem then.
Oh, okay.
I don't really have a problem with it here. I've seen some arguments about it in the original movie, but personally, I'm like, I can look past that for this.
I think it works.
I think it works.
Movie.
It's, yeah. I guess the only thing that kind of bothers me is, honestly, like, Neo and Trinity as characters are pretty boring.
Yeah.
I mean,
when you first get introduced to both of them, it's not that... You don't really know much about their personalities or anything.
I mean, they don't really have one even at the end of the movie. And the whole, like,
Morpheus is my boy.
And the whole, the whole, like, I love you or something at the end. That's like, whoa, hold on. There was literally no reason to have that.
That was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it was pretty awkward. Morpheus is cool. I really, just as, like, an enjoyable villain, I really like Agent Smith. Because he's so, like, hilariously diabolical that it's, like, just entertaining. And I will say this, it gets better in the later movies. He gets more extreme, and it's great.
Oh my God.
He's the only thing in all of the movies that's good. But, yeah, so I like that. But again, the main 2, it's not that big of a deal because the focus isn't really on them, but it is a little bit.
There is also a kiss of, like, rebirth and stuff that happened too.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
She magically.
How did she Snow White him back to life?
Well, I think again the idea is supposed to be, again, your brain makes it real, right? And so he wasn't really dead. It was just his brain thinking like, oh, I need to die or something, right? And then that kind of snapped him out. It's not a great explanation, but it's something, right? I don't know. This is the whole suspension of disbelief thing, and I will agree. Yeah, the whole "I love you" thing and the kid. That's probably the worst point of the movie because you're just sitting there just like, wait a minute, what? But
It was a bit like lame.
yeah,
It was pretty lame and
Movies-
anticlimactic.
yeah, the movie's definitely not perfect. But I do think it's an overall enjoyable experience, even now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah. Woo. Well, never mind. I'll save that for later because I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of something, but that something is coming up, so I'll shoot.
Oh.
I'll shoot.
Okay. Okay.
Alrighty.
Any other comments?
any-
I don't know. I feel like I just talked forever, but whatever.
I mean,
I mean, you technically know the most about this because you watched the other two movies.
I guess.
yeah, you might have more to say just based on like retrospective, looking back on it.
And I did see it more recently than you, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently I blocked out a lot of the movie.
I
I'd
remember like certain
forgotten.
things.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the little tracking robot thingy. I forgot about that.
I forgot about a lot
Yeah.
of things,
I
and then
remembered-
I saw them.
I remembered when he first gets out of the thing and he has all the crap coming out of him, and then like the scene shortly after that, and I remembered the mouth thing in the beginning of the movie.
Oh, right.
But
I-
I didn't remember the little robot dude, so I was like, oh, right, this happens.
It's kind of funny because after now seeing that, I vaguely have a memory now of like having nightmares about that scene, and then
Oh my god.
I just blocked that out of my memory. So I was like, yeah, I've watched The Matrix, but I remember like nothing of The Matrix.
Just
Now-
remember the good parts.
Yeah, the not terrifyingly horrible nightmare fuel parts.
I don't.
Yeah,
I will say I don't think there's stuff like that in the other movies.
I mean, I think it's only because like he just got out of it, so
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Again, I saw these once like 4 or 5 years ago, so it's not something. But I don't think so. But I don't know. Because again, part of this movie is like the whole shock of, the Matrix being a thing, and it's like, well, by the time you get to the second and third movie, it's like that's not a shock anymore because we know that already.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
So I don't know. I think so, but if there is something, don't get mad at me.
I won't get mad at you. I'll just cry in
Cry.
the corner.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I mean, I was able to watch more of this movie than Blade, so that already tells you that
Yeah.
it's not the main focus of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to say?
Sora's not getting a treat.
No.
Oh.
Like, definitely not.
No. No, she ain't.
No.
I mean, the next movie, we have absolutely no idea how that's going to be, so maybe she'll get one then, or maybe it'll be, like, amazingly good. Who knows? Probably not,
The next-
but...
yeah. The next surprise, hopefully, I don't know.
Shrug.
Hopefully.
With the genre, I don't have high hopes, but I guess we'll see.
If I were to
Yeah.
guess, I'd say just kind of meh. But
Yeah,
that...
I would
I
say
kind
yeah.
of think that it's going to be like another payback.
Yeah, probably.
where we're just like, why is he doing this? This doesn't make sense. Seems
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that next time.
Yeah. Till then,
Bye.
goodbye.